Alright, let's step into the world of modernism, a movement that completely redefined how literature looked, sounded, and even felt. Modernism emerged in the early 20th century, especially after World War I, when writers were struggling to make sense of a world shattered by violence, loss, and disillusionment. The old romantic ideals of heroism and harmony suddenly felt hollow. What replaced them was realism, experimentation, and a deep exploration of the mind. Writers began to reject traditional storytelling. They started asking, what's more real, the world we see or the one inside our heads? This shift gave rise to psychological realism, fragmented narratives, and the stream of consciousness technique, a way of writing that follows the mind's inner flow of thought. That technique has been directly asked in exam, so do keep it in mind. The influence of Freudian psychology was huge here. Freud's ideas about the unconscious mind, repression, and dreams shaped how writers portrayed their characters. Instead of focusing on external action, literature now turned inward, revealing layers of thought, memory, and emotion. We often call this period the age of modernism, and it produced some of the greatest literary innovators. T.S. Eliot, whose The Waste Land captured the spiritual emptiness and cultural decay of post-war Europe, this poem has been asked in exam. Virginia Woolf, who explored consciousness, time, and isolation in novels like Mrs. Dalloway and To the Lighthouse. And James Joyce, who revolutionized narrative structure with Ulysses, again a must-remember exam favorite. Modernism also introduced the lost generation writers like Hemingway and Fitzgerald, who expressed the sense of alienation and aimlessness that followed the war. At the same time, political themes began to rise. Writers such as W.H. Auden and the Max Ponde group tackled contemporary social and moral concerns. You also see a growing emphasis on class, gender, and economics, with writers like D.H. Lawrence, who examined primal instincts and human nature, and George Orwell, whose works critiqued authoritarian regimes. Both writers combine psychological realism with political vision. An important aspect of this literary revolution was the expansion of women's voices. Female authors began to write boldly about identity, sexuality, and self-awareness. And not to forget, the Hogarth Press, founded by Virginia and Leonard Woolf, played a vital role in publishing experimental modernist works. That press's name has been asked in exam. All this experimentation with form, language, time, and consciousness made modernism a movement that questioned not only how to write, but why we write at all. And as the century moved forward, this spirit of experimentation paved the way for postmodernism, where playfulness and irony replaced the solemnity of early modernist angst. Now, let's talk about one of the most influential creative circles of that time, the Bloomsbury group. This was a small coterie of English writers, artists, and intellectuals who met regularly in Bloomsbury, London, between 1907 and 1930. They gathered in the homes of Clive and Vanessa Bell, and also at Virginia Woolf's house, often joined by her brother Adrian Stephen. They were guided by the philosophy of G.E. Moore's Principia Ethica, 1903, that's a direct exam question, and by Russell's Principia Mathematica. They constantly questioned ideas about what is good, true, and beautiful. Their discussions were bold, free-thinking, and what they called comprehensively irreverent. Yes, that exact phrase has been asked in exam. The group included some of the biggest names in early 20th century British culture. Virginia Woolf, fiction writer and essayist. Lytton Strachey, the biographer. E.M. Forster, novelist of A Passage to India. Clive Bell, the art critic. Vanessa Bell, the post-impressionist painter. Roger Fry and Duncan Grant, both art critics and painters. John Maynard Keynes, the economist. Leonard Woolf, essayist and publisher. And Desmond McCarthy, literary journalist. Together, they championed individual expression, sincerity, and aesthetic beauty over moral rigidity. Their influence spread across art, fiction, and even economics, shaping what we now think of as modern thought. Now, let's meet Dorothy Richardson, a pioneering figure in modernist fiction. She was born in 1873 and is often credited as one of the first writers to use the stream of consciousness technique. That fact has been asked directly in exam. Richardson's great work is Pilgrimage, a sequence of 13 interconnected novels written between 1915 and 1938. She saw each volume not as a separate novel but as a chapter of one long narrative. The first volume, Pointed Roofs, came out in 1915, and you should absolutely remember that year. Then came Backwater in 1916, Honeycomb in 1917, The Tunnel and Interim in 1919, Deadlock in 1921, and Revolving Lights in 1923. The series continued through The Trap, 1925, Oberland, 1927, Dawn's Left Hand, 1931, Clear Horizon, 1935, and Dimple Hill, 1938. Through all these volumes, Richardson's central character is Miriam Henderson, a young woman navigating education, work, friendship, and self-discovery in a rapidly changing world. Miriam is what critics call a new woman, independent, thoughtful, and often at odds with traditional society. The Pilgrimage series captures the texture of feminine consciousness, the way thought flows, shifts, and circles around emotion and perception. It's quiet, introspective, and profoundly modern. So to sum up, modernism breaks from tradition after the trauma of World War I. The Bloomsbury group redefined aesthetics and individualism. And Dorothy Richardson's Pilgrimage gave us the female voice at the heart of the modernist revolution. Together, they mark the moment when English literature stopped looking outward for rules and began looking inward for truth.